Good morning. We are on our way to a Revolutionary War burial site here in Maine for a guy named Seth Sturtevant. He was incredible. He has a really cool, very short, but very interesting life experience in the U.S. Army. He joined in 1776, was out by 1780, had a really interesting run. It was short, it was brief, but there was a lot of power packed in his service for the U.S. military. And so I can't wait to bring you to see his burial sites in Sumner, Maine. Are you ready? Let's go. We're here.
We made it. We found the cemetery. There's really very limited public access. We're parked in the property owner's driveway, and the cemetery is behind their house.
Yep, she was very nice to let us park here. So
nice.
Robinson Cemetery. We finally made it. Alright, he's in there. There he is! There he is, right here! Here he is! Here he is, we just found him, right here. Right there. I don't know if you can see. Right here. The flag and everything.
Looks like we found it. We're here today in Sumner, Maine to visit the final resting place of Seth Sturtevant. Seth Sturtevant is a Revolutionary War veteran. He is buried here with his wife Abigail and his mother Joanna. So Seth Sturtevant was born in Halifax, Massachusetts in 1760. At the age of 16, July of 1776, right after the United States declared its independence from England, Seth decided he wanted to join the military. It was only about a month after joining the military that Seth was in his very first battle. That battle was in Long Island, New York. It wasn't until October of that same year that Seth went off to his second battle at White Plains, New York. Now during that battle in White Plains, Seth took a musket ball to the leg and it lodged itself just above the knee. This is a growing 16-year-old boy, so they decided, well, we're not going to take that out, it's not going to cause any problems, we're just going to leave it there. So he went with it. Seth had signed up for a 5-month tour, and that 5-month tour ended in December. Instead of re-enlisting, Seth decided, I'm going to take a year off, I'm going to take some time off at least, and heal up and recuperate and figure out what I want to do. June of 1777, Seth's all gung-ho, he's ready to do it again. So he signed up for the Massachusetts Brigade under Benedict Arnold. Now it wasn't until October of that year before Seth was in his next battle. That battle started on October 7th in Saratoga, and that was against General Burgoyne. Now that battle did not last very long, it lasted 10 days. On October 17th, General Burgoyne surrendered to the United States. And guess who was right there when it happened? Seth Sturtevant. In December of 1777, the Massachusetts Brigade migrated to Valley Forge to an encampment there with George Washington. They spent from December of 1777 through to June of 1778. Now, this wasn't summer camp, it wasn't winter camp, it was terrible. Bad weather, snowing, raining all the time, very, very cold. Being a young country, we had very little funding for our military at that point in time, so they had no shelter, no clothes, no food, and most importantly, no shoes. So there were people walking barefoot around the encampment, leaving trails of blood in their footprints. People were getting sick, people were dying, people were depressed, and morale was very, very low. At one point in time, George Washington thought he was going to solve the problem by breaking the encampment up into groups of 12 and having them build barracks. So people weren't the only ones who perished here in this camp. Horses died as well. So they had no horses to do the heavy work. So these soldiers had to cut down the trees, they had to plane the trees, they had to make the boards, they had to haul all this stuff back to the camp and put it in place so they could build their barracks. Again, very depressing, very low morale. So one day, being the very positive person that he is, Seth tells his friend, I'm going to start a wrestling match. His friend's like, no, you're not going to start a wrestling match. He says, yes, I am. He says, I'm going to go challenge the very first person I see. So he gets up, he walks around, and he sees this guy leaning over a picnic table. So he walks up to him, taps him on the shoulder, and says, hey, you want to wrestle? The guy turns around, looks at him, he stands up, and now Seth is looking up at him. He says, sure, I'll wrestle. So they get into position, they start wrestling, and this guy picks up Seth, puts him on his back, and pins him, just like that. Seth's like, oh. He gets back up, he says, let's go again. I said, okay, let's go again. So again, they're wrestling around a little bit. He picks him up, puts him on his back, and pins him again. Seth's like, oh, okay, I give up. Thank you very much. Congratulations. He walks off, he goes back, sits back down with his friend, and his friend just sitting there with his mouth open. He's like, what? What's wrong? Did you know who that was? He says, no. That was George Washington. Seth was shocked. The 16-year-old scrapping boy just wrestled a mountain of a man, George Washington. He lost, but he wrestled George Washington. A short time later, on April 1st, Seth gets the notice, you have been invited to be a member of George Washington's Life Guard. This is George Washington's personal bodyguard. So Seth, at the age of 17, is now, actually no, he's 18. At the age of 18, is now one of the most elite soldiers in the United States military, protecting the leader of our military. As far as we know, Seth was only involved with one more battle. That battle was on June 28th of 1778, and that battle was at Monmouth, New Jersey. Seth spent about another 2 years in the military at that point in time. He retired in June of 1780, and he decided he's going to take a little bit of time off, figure out what he wants to do with his life. About a year later, he's figured it out. He's going to be a sailor. He goes and he works on several different boats, the most popular of which was the Mars and the Skyrocket. After about 3 years of doing this, it was about 1781 to about 1783, Seth gets off the boat and he's overheard saying, I will never do that again. So he must not have had a very good time. He takes off about another year, trying to figure out what he wants to do now. And in 1784, he meets Abigail and they get married. In 1795, Abigail and Seth leave Halifax, Massachusetts, and they move to West Butterfield, Massachusetts, where we are today. That's right, this used to be part of Massachusetts still at that point in time, so we're now called Sumner, Maine, but at that point in time it was West Butterfield, Massachusetts. About 2 years later, in 1797, Seth's mother Joanna comes to live with Abigail and Seth. We can only assume that his father must have passed away and left her alone, so naturally, like they did back in that point in time, she came back to live with the children and be taken care of. So Abigail and Seth had 3 children, 3 daughters. Seth lived to the age of 92, surviving his wife Abigail and 2 of his daughters. In the last few years of his life, he moved in with his one surviving daughter in Hartford, Maine, and then he passed away in 1852, and he was buried here in Sumner, Maine, next to his wife Abigail and his mother Joanna. So for those of you who like historical facts, Revolutionary War soldiers were given a bounty of a land grant by the United States government for their service in the military. But about the age 57, 58, Seth was given a land grant by Maine. That land grant was for 200 acres, and it was for somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. Seth and Abigail had already settled themselves here in Sumner, Maine, so they had no desire to pick up and move and start over again. So Seth sold the land and he pocketed the money, and I'm sure he used it to establish his future for his wife and children. Thank you very much for coming along with us to Sumner, Maine today. I hope you've enjoyed this story of Seth Sturtevant and his service in the military and his life in Maine. Follow along and we'll take you on to other cemeteries in Maine and teach you some more about both Revolutionary War soldiers, Union Civil War soldiers, and Confederate War soldiers.